Hi, folks. My name is J.M. Rollins, and I'm a transformation engineering lead here at Software AG and a specialist in the ARIS platform. And today we're doing another ARIS Art of the Possible video as part of our ongoing series of tutorials and best practices on using the ARIS platform. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that every client is going to have to face as part of their discussions around ARIS, and that is methods and conventions. Now, what are methods and conventions? That's a question that a lot of folks ask. And they're really the first part of the conversation about setting standards inside ARIS for process modeling, and actually just in modeling in general. Methods and conventions cover both methods, as in what types of, and I'll go through these as we look at them, models, objects, attributes, connections, and assignments. You're allowed to have those 5 topics. We'll talk about one at a time. Conventions being, how do they look? What is the common symbology? What are the common shapes and sizes? How do I expect a model to be laid out? And these 2 things put together establish our baseline language for how an organization will address capturing, representing, connecting, and analyzing their business architecture. Now, in the example here in our United Motor Group fictitious company database, I actually have the first layers of how a method might be laid out. Because remember I talked about methods have 5 things. Well, the first is the types of models. And so these are all going to be capturing the different model types, or at least we're going to capture in different model types underneath. It's also going to allude to the types of objects we're going to allow people to capture within our database. Now, method filters are set can be set for users or user groups, so different people can have access to different types of information. That's more on the governance and permissioning side. But just as a starting point for the conversation, you are determining the language people are allowed to use. The other piece of the puzzle, in terms of like the modeling methodology for processes, is you're also choosing which types of process models you're allowed to use. Are we focusing on EPC, BPMN, which is a debate we had in an earlier video? Am I using other international standards such as Archimate? Or am I using models that are decision-based models like DMN? Am I enabling UML? Am I enabling value stream maps? Am I looking at customer journeys, which we'll talk about in a subsequent video? Am I enabling different types of strategy diagrams, balanced scorecard, fishbone diagrams, like cause and effect diagrams? Those are all good questions you want to discuss. Now, my recommendation for you is to start with the minimum viable product. Pare down this number to the very smallest number of possible things that you can reasonably start with to get a good analysis out. What does that do? Well, if I were to create a new model here, and I have a list of models for me, you'll see the confusion I might have as a new user with all these possible models coming in. So many options. But if I only had 2 or 3, it'd be really easy to do the right thing the first time. And that means that it's easier for people to get started, onboarding is faster, and ultimately you're gonna start getting better content more quickly. The second piece of the puzzle is, why do I reduce that number of things? It also reduces the burden of uptake for your initial data load, as in, when I'm starting to bring information in from external sources, I don't necessarily have to have all my regulations in order, or all my policies in order, or all my data in order. I'm not actually looking to get that information in here right away. Maybe later on I'll try and bring that in and integrate that. But I can actually start with a minimum viable product of like just my application systems. That's it. Those are the only application systems and people. And everything else is, we'll get it when we get it. And it'll give us a lot more value, but we're not going to have to start with it. So it's reducing the perceived burden on the startup cost of bringing things into the tool. So now I'm going to talk about how that affects your model. So I'm going to go over to my model here, my sales order processing model. And let me tell you about what the method affects here. Because remember I said a method affects 5 things. The models, which you talked a little bit about before, so which types of models. The objects, as in which types of information I can contain on models. And then 3 more things that I talked about: the attributes, connections, and assignments. Attributes are this panel on the right side. Do I want to capture description definition? Do I want to capture name? Do I want to capture status? All these things that I'm choosing which of these attributes are available to the models, to their objects, to even the connections. You can see this connection has a couple of attributes. And making that decision makes it so you've got a minimum viable set of form fields that are relevant for capturing metadata you care about on these process models, application models, and on the objects on those models. I also choose the types of connections. Remember, so that's models, objects, attributes. The types of connections that are available between objects to each other on models. For examples, between a role and a step, well, look, if I have no filter set up with my method, I got so many different possibilities, but maybe I just want 4, like RACI. Makes it easier. Maybe I just want 1, R, responsible, carries out. So it makes it very easy for when I'm connecting a person to a function or a role to a function. It's an instantaneous connection. You don't have to worry about selecting from a list of possibilities. And so once again, reducing the burden on people, making it easier and easier. And the last type of thing that you determine here is assignments, as in, remember this little model assignment icon above and to the left? Then when we click on this assignments button, every type of object has a list of types of diagrams that can be assigned to. You're just trying to make it easier and easier to show the hierarchical decomposition of ideas. And so method filters will determine what you're allowed to assign to. What objects can decompose to which models. So once again, those 5 things: models, objects, connections, attributes, assignments. Those 5 things are what your method will determine. Now, it's really important to control that, and also to control how things look. And that's when we talk about the model itself and the templates or conventions for how the visualizations are laid out. And if I change the template, you can see the shapes all change, the colors all change, the lines all change. I'm actually changing even the attribute placement. It's moved from the middle of the model to below, or middle of the object to below the object. So a template controls how everything looks. So you're wanting to set a standard for how each object looks so you can have a consistent look and feel across all your models. That's really important. So we're able to edit those templates and edit that method to make it so that everyone who's working in the environments, we assign it to them. They're only allowed to use these templates and these methods. And so very, very easy for you to standardize around the language you've chosen and the representations that communicate most to your community. Now my tech tip of the day: how do I actually do that? Well, we'll talk about this more in a more advanced video on method filter creation and setting, but it's actually in ARIS Architect. If you click on the ARIS button and go to Administration, you'll find in your Configuration menu right here, both your method and your conventions. So we're gonna group our conventions into filters, as in the things I've been talking about, and the templates that will control how things look. And the method is going to be the sum total of all of your, and let's give it a second, the attributes, your connections, your models, your objects, your symbols. What am I allowed? This is where I'm also able to set or add to my list of possible objects, possible models, possible connections, possible attributes. If I wanted to add custom things, add new symbols, that sort of thing, I can customize my method here. Now, everything is, of course, it's just a right click away. So if I wanted to add a new attribute type, I just add it right here. So it's actually not hard at all. I know there's some folks out there who have had trouble, configuring tool sets in the past. Don't worry, ARIS is pretty easy for that. Now, we always recommend folks from Software AG or your business partners and experts in business process analysis give you some advice on how you might do it. But it's a great tool. You can do it yourselves if you really need to. We'd like to leave you with a capacity to support your evolving needs on your method. So that's methods and conventions. That's establishing your common language. And as I said, that's a very important part of starting up any project or any initiative around ARIS. You want to establish your standards. You want to communicate them out to the team. You want to sanctify them in real method filters that control what people can see. And you want to deploy those out to people with hard governance so they can only use those when they're making their models and connecting everything together. Once again, I've been J.M. Erlinson, and this is some ARIS information through the Art of the Possible series. Please, once again, leave a like, comment, share. Feel free to give us some feedback on what things you'd like to see in subsequent videos, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks so much.